The girl who cried beside the well in the province of Sorsogon, behind the old elementary school. There was a well that no one touched, not for water, not for wishes, not even for dares. The teachers said it was dry and dangerous. But the kids knew better, they said sometimes. You could hear someone crying from deep inside it, always at sunset, always a girl, always the same voice. And if you dropped a coin in, she would stop crying. But only for a while, until she needed more, until she noticed who was listening. Paulo was 12, fearless, always first to laugh at stories. He didn't believe in ghosts, only in games, so when someone dared him to spend 1 hour near the well, he accepted with a grin. He brought a flashlight and a soda, and told his friends he'd bring back proof. They waited behind the mango tree watching. Paulo sat beside the well, tapping on its bricks, whispering hello into the dark. Nothing replied, until he tossed in a small stone, and the crying began, soft at first, then sharp like a girl choking on air. Then it changed. She began saying words, help, please, so cold, so dark. Then come closer. Paulo leaned over the mouth of the well, flashlight pointed down. He saw only stone and shadows. But the crying grew louder. He turned to call for his friends, but they were gone. The tree was still there, but the field behind it was wrong, bigger, darker. No clouds, no wind, only silence. He turned back to the well and saw her face, just eyes floating below the rim, staring up, unblinking lips, moving without sound. Then her hand reached up and touched his wrist, cold as stone, heavy as regret. They found Paulo an hour later, under the tree, pale, silent, hand covered in dirt. He didn't speak for 3 days, only whispered, water not from here. His mother took him to church, his Lola bathed him in salt. He never spoke about the well again. But one teacher, Ms. Soriano, told the priest something that years ago, when she was still a student, a girl had fallen into that same well. Her name was Lyra. She was 8. She had gone missing after school, and no one heard her scream. But that week they heard crying from the well, and no one dared look inside. After Paulo's incident, the school closed the path to the well, put up boards, posted warnings. But the crying didn't stop. It moved first to the bathroom, where water ran without pipes, then to room 3, where mirrors fogged up with fingerprints. One student saw her during class, said a girl stood behind the teacher, smiling with lips too wide, her eyes full of black water. Another said she felt hair brush her shoulder during a quiz. One boy fainted when he opened a book and found it soaked from the inside, every page whispering the same word. Down the town suffered drought. That month wells dried up, pipes coughed dust. But the school's well stayed wet, always full, always dark. Some said they saw water bubbling at night, even when the air was still. Ms. Soriano had a dream one night. She stood at the edge of the well and saw Lyra at the bottom, not dead, just waiting, holding out a doll soaked in blood. Behind her were others. More children, all wet, all silent, all staring up. And then she saw her own reflection among them, and woke up with water in her shoes. One morning, the janitor opened the school gate and heard a scream, long, not angry, not afraid, just broken. It echoed from the hallway. He ran, found nothing but puddles leading to the sealed well path. He quit that day. The principal tried to replace him. Each new janitor left after 1 week, saying the same thing. Something walks the halls at night, wearing a soaked dress, carrying a doll that drips black. In room 3, Paulo returned years later. Now, in high school, the school had changed, but the well was still there, sealed tight. He said he wanted to see it again to finish something. While helping clean the old classrooms, he found a letter in a drawer written in red ink on lined yellow paper. It said, "You saw me, you heard me, now carry me." He looked up and saw the teacher's mirror covered in steam. His name appeared in the fog. Then fingers pressed from the other side. That night Paulo returned alone. Not because he was brave, but because the crying had started again in his room, in his head, sometimes in his chest. He lit a candle and followed the old path past the mango tree, past the broken fence. He reached the sealed well, but the boards were wet, rotting soft. He pushed them aside and looked. In no moonlight, reached the bottom, but he heard her closer than before, no longer crying, whispering, "Just let me see your face again. Just let me feel warmth." He dropped the candle. In it didn't fall, it floated. And a hand reached up to catch it. The next morning the school was closed again. The principal gone. The floors soaked. Students said the well was no longer sealed, that it was open and full of fog, that the wind around it whispered a name, Paulo, that the classroom mirrors were covered in handprints, not one, not two, but dozens, small, narrow, broken, like someone trying to pull themselves out or drag someone in. Ms. Soriano visited the well one final time. She placed 3 candles at its edge and whispered Lyra's name. Then she dropped in a photograph of her class from 20 years ago. Lyra's photo was missing from the middle, only a burn mark. Where her face used to be. The crying stopped that day, not faded, stopped. No more puddles, no more fog, no more voices, just silence, like something holding its breath or waiting. New to town, quiet, smart, but never looked anyone in the eye. She always sat near the window and always carried a small soaked doll. When asked where she was from, she said down, and smiled that wide, sad smile, the same one people had forgotten, but the walls remembered sometimes. When she laughed, the water pipes dripped even when it hadn't rained in months. And when she cried, the mirrors in room 3 fogged up with names, names of students, not enrolled, names, not alive. It said that the well is gone now, filled in, cemented, paved over. But sometimes on late afternoons, when the sun turns red and the shadows stretch long, if you walk near the back of the old school grounds, you'll hear someone crying, a girl, soft at first, then louder, until it stops and turns into laughter. And if you listen too long, she'll know your name, and if she knows your name, she'll never stop calling until you come sit beside the well and listen back. The 4th room was never there. In the hills of Zambales there stood a house older than memory, built of wood that had turned gray and stone, that stayed cold even under sunlight. It had 3 rooms, one for sleeping, one for eating, one for silence. No one used the silence room, but no one questioned it either until Marian moved in. She was 28. She worked from home, writing manuals for appliances she didn't own. She needed peace, solitude, and quiet. She found the house on an old website, no reviews. Just a number and a warning, "Do not change the door at the end of the hall." She thought it was a joke, a rural superstition. The rent was cheap, the surroundings peaceful, the silence complete, perfect for 2 weeks. Then she opened the door. It was a small door at the very end of the hallway, narrow, no knob, just a hook. When she opened it, she saw a room that didn't match the others, dusty, but lived in curtains that moved despite the still air, a rocking chair that creaked slowly though no one sat in it, and a smell, old wood and burnt sugar and something faintly metallic. She stepped inside, and the door shut. She didn't panic, not right away. Then the room grew colder and darker. and she turned to leave, but the door was gone just while she blinked, and it was back, but now the hallway behind it was unfamiliar longer, and lined with mirrors. She walked the hallway back to her bedroom, or what should have been her bedroom now. The hall had too many doors, all shut, all humming. She passed a mirror, and caught her reflection smiling, though she wasn't she. Ran the lights, flickered, shadows moved with no source. She reached a door and pushed, found her kitchen. But it wasn't hers. The fridge was old, the table set for four. Though she lived alone, 3 plates were full, the fourth had something rotting, and the chair beside it was pulled out slightly as if someone had been waiting. She backed away, then heard a child's voice, soft, hungry. You finally came back. Marian tried to leave. She opened the front door, found a brick wall, no cracks, no wind, just stone. She screamed, but the house swallowed sound. She ran to the silence room. Inside it was empty, but on the wall hung a photo, a family of 4, mother, father, daughter, and another girl in the background, face blurred, clothes, wet eyes staring directly at her. She looked closer. The mother was wearing her necklace, the father had her hands, the girl in the back had her face. The next morning came without sunlight, just a pale glow leaking through gray windows. She searched the house again, measured the walls, 3 rooms, but the hallway was longer, the 4th door kept returning, sometimes open, sometimes shut, sometimes gone. She found a note in the rocking chair, not in ink, in burned charcoal. It read, "Stay in the 3rd room when the rocking stops. Feed the 4th plate. Do not answer the knock if it's before midnight, and never call her by your name." She ignored the note at first, until the smell returned, sweet and rotten, and the 4th plate refilled itself, a chunk of raw meat, a clump of hair, a single tooth. She tried to throw it away, but the garbage bin was gone. She buried it. Garden, but the next day it was back on the plate, and the rocking chair was moving faster. She stayed in the 3rd room that night, sitting by the wall, counting the creaks, 12. Then silence, then footsteps, slow, wet, and stopping right outside her door. Then a whisper, too early to knock, but not too early to look. She began hearing breathing from under the floors, behind the tiles, inside the sink drain. Once, while brushing her teeth, she felt fingers brush hers, but no one else was there. Her reflection stopped matching her movements. The photo on the wall changed. The mother was now screaming, the father, missing the 4th plate, had her face on it, eyes wide, mouth open, and her name carved into the forehead. She stayed awake 5 days, but the house didn't tire, only waited. Patient and hungry, Camille sat on the edge of her bed, holding the photo in shaking hands. It was the class picture from her 2nd grade, smiling children, lined in rows, teachers behind them, one banner above their heads, with the school's anniversary written in chalk. She counted the students once, then again and again. There were 23 kids, but her class had only 22. The 4th row in the photo had someone she didn't remember, a girl in a white dress, standing just slightly off to the side, face turned too far, hands clasped too tight, eyes dark smudges. Camille stared at it until the girl in the photo began to turn her head just slightly every second. She looked away, like the photo was alive, like the memory wanted to finish something. They had locked the hallway, sealed it with chains and warnings, no entry beyond 3A. But one afternoon, the janitor quit and the key was missing. And when Camille came to school the next morning, the 4th door was there again, not a crack, not a smear, a real door, wood and handle and welcome mat. She stood in front of it and heard the faint sound of chalk on board, children laughing. Then a single whisper, "Are you ready now?" She didn't touch the handle. It opened on its own. Inside the fourth room was a classroom, not broken, not old, clean, too clean. Walls were white, the desks arranged neatly, sunlight from a window that faced nothing, and sitting in the middle was the girl, same dress, same hands, same too-wide smile. She didn't blink, she didn't move, until Camille spoke. "I remember now." The girl stood slowly, no sound in her steps. "You left me." Camille shook her head. "No. You were never here." The girl's smile faded. "That's what they all said." Then they sealed the door. But memory doesn't die when the room is locked. From the far end of the room came another voice, soft, warm, tired. A woman stepped from behind the desk. It was Ms. Vargas, Camille's teacher, gone 15 years, face pale, eyes wet like shed, never stopped crying. She looked at Camille like she wasn't sure she was real. "You came back." "I never left. I've been taking attendance for years." But no one answers, only her. She pointed to the girl. Camille felt the air close in, thick with dust and echoes. "This room doesn't belong here." Ms. Vargas nodded. "But it remembers." The girl stepped forward, her eyes deeper, now not sad. "Hungry. You all grew up, you all forgot. But I stayed. I remembered everything, the fire, the screaming, the locked door. You turned away and said the room was empty. It was never empty. I waited. You weren't supposed to leave. You were supposed to stay with me. Now you can." Camille backed up toward the door, but the door was gone, only blackboard walls. Now the desks melted into fog. And the teacher wept, said, "I tried to teach her to forget, but memory has its own class." Camille opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came. It's only the sound of chalk scratching behind her. The board now had names, all her classmates. One by one they faded, as if marked absent, until only hers remained. Then another name appeared beneath it, the girl's, and beside it, present. Camille turned and faced her. "Do you want revenge? Or do you just want to be seen?" The girl tilted her head like no one had ever asked before, then whispered, "Don't forget me," and disappeared. So did the room. The hallway is back to normal. Now 3 doors, no more, no less. Camille moved to another town. She never talks about that school, but every year on the last day of March, she receives a class photo in the mail. Same banner, same faces, same number of students. But the 4th row is empty, and someone always writes at the back in red ink, "Don't forget the one who stayed." The man who lived in the mirror when Mara moved into the boarding house in Sampaloc. She didn't choose her room, it was the only one left. Room 6 at the end of the 2nd floor, hallway narrow with wooden floors, and one old mirror nailed to the wall beside the bed. The landlady said the mirror was part of the house, can't remove it, can't cover it, it's always been there. Mara didn't mind, at least not at first. But on her 3rd night, she noticed something wrong. Her reflection blinked slower than she did. She stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair. The light was dim yellow, cast from the single bulb above her. She blinked, so did her reflection. She turned her head, so did the mirror. But when she dropped the brush, she bent to pick it up. The mirror did not. Instead, it smiled, not a wide smile, not monstrous, just slightly wider than hers, like it knew something. Mara stared, then the reflection moved its hand, but she hadn't. It waved slow, like it was waking up. She asked the landlady again about the mirror. She laughed nervously and said, "You know how old this place is, 100 years or more. A lot of faces looked in that glass. Some never left, they say, long ago. A man lived in that room, didn't speak much, watched people from windows. One day, he locked the door, and never came out. When they broke it open he was gone, but the mirror was cracked. And ever since then, well, some tenants see things. Mara tried to laugh it off, but she stopped sleeping with the light off, and never looked into the mirror too long. It came during a storm, rain pounding the rooftop, thunder rattling the windows. She was trying to sleep when she heard her name, Mara, soft behind her. She turned, nothing, but the mirror was fogged, and 3 words were written in the condensation: help me out. She backed away, her breath stuck in her throat. She wiped the glass clean, and her reflection stared back again, but it was still smiling, still breathing. Mara decided to ask the neighbors. Some were students like her, others had been there for years. One girl told her, sometimes I see a man standing behind me when I brush my teeth, but when I turn around no one's there. An old man in the next room said he once took a photo inside room 6 for his ID. When it printed, there was a shadow behind him, even though he was alone, a man with no eyes, no mouth, just a long coat and hands pressed to the glass. He never took photos again. That night Mara dreamed she was inside the mirror. Everything was reversed. The clock hands moved backward. The calendar showed dates from 50 years ago. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. She saw the man, tall face, blurry head, tilted like he was listening to her thoughts. He reached out and touched her cheek. His hand felt like broken tiles. Then he whispered, "You've been here before." She woke up, gasping. The mirror was fogged again, but this time it said, "Stay with me." Mara stopped looking in mirrors. She avoided the bathroom after midnight, covered her phone camera. But one day, while washing her face, she saw the reflection again, not in the mirror, in the water. The man was behind her again, this time closer. She turned and slipped, hit her head on the sink. Blood ran into her eyes, and when she looked up, the mirror was gone, just a window now, and the man was staring from the other side. She tried to leave the boarding house, packed her bags, called a friend, but the door wouldn't open, not locked, just wouldn't move. She called the landlady. She didn't answer. The windows wouldn't open either. She smashed one with a chair, but there was only darkness behind it. No street, no light, just black, as if the house had moved somewhere else, somewhere deeper. Mara collapsed in the hallway, crying, and from the room behind her, the mirror laughed, not loud, just enough to remind her she wasn't alone. The next morning, she saw a small hole in the wall beside the mirror, like something watching from the inside. She covered it with tape, but it peeled off by itself within hours. She painted over it, but the paint cracked open the next day. Then she heard the voice again, closer: "Mara, don't turn away, you already saw me." The mirror was pulsing now, like it had breath, like it had a heartbeat. She dug through old records in the barangay hall, found a newspaper clipping: 1965, boarding house tenant vanishes. Room 6 sealed. Strange writings left on walls. Locals blame the mirror. She found a faded photo of the missing man, hair neat, eyes hollow, no smile. But something about him looked familiar. She turned the photo upside down, then held it next to the mirror, and gasped. It was her reflection, only not quite just enough to be wrong enough to know the mirror wasn't showing her. It was showing what it wanted her to become. The light bulb above her flickered, then went out. Complete darkness, except the mirror, which glowed faintly like moonlight trapped in glass. She approached slowly, heart pounding, and her reflection didn't match her steps. It raised its hand when she didn't, it blinked when she didn't, it smiled, and pressed its palm against the inside of the mirror behind it. The man stepped forward. He whispered, "Trade just once, let me." "Walk again, you stay here." She turned to run, but her feet were no longer hers. The landlady knocked on room 6 in the morning. No answer, no sound. She opened the door. Empty bags gone, bed untouched, mirror shining, and in the corner of the glass, a girl's face, mouth open, hand pressed to the inside, eyes begging. But she said nothing, just moved when the mirror moved, and behind her a man stood smiling.
If you enjoyed this terrifying story, let us know in the comments below. Hit that like button to help us bring more cursed tales and dark legends to life. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, but warn them first. And if you dare, subscribe to this channel, because here in Pinoy Phobia, the horror never ends. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next cursed story, spine-chilling folklore, or true paranormal encounter from the shadows of the Philippines. Remember, some stories are meant to be heard, but others are meant to be warnings. Thank you for watching, and remember, whatever happens, don't look back.